Hello, everyone. Greetings from the US. Last week, Redux reported that a man with a woman identity currently incarcerated at women's prison in Washington state has been charged with intimidating a public servant and malicious mischief in the first degree after he threatened and assaulted a female correction officer. Nani Marcella Lotus Flower, born Nathan something starting with the G, it's a weird name, has a history of violence against women and is currently serving a 10-year sentence at WCCW for the murder of a teen girl. The U.S. Department of Education was very, very busy this week. On the 25th, the department's Office of Civil Rights opened an investigation into Portland Public Schools amid allegations that it has violated Title IX by allowing a male athlete to compete in girls' interscholastic track and field events on March 19th and permitting the male athlete to use the girls' locker room while female athletes were changing. The male athlete in question, Ada Gallagher, recently took the first place trophy from female competitors in the 200 and 400-meter dashes, beating his closest female competitor in the 400 by over 7 seconds and setting season records. OCR also sent a letter notifying the Oregon School Activities Association, the governing body for the Portland Interscholastic League, that it was opening a directed investigation into its gender identity participation policy, which appears to violate Title IX. On the 27th, Education Secretary Linda McMahon sent a letter to California Governor Gavin Newsom requesting clarity about his stance on whether male athletes should be allowed to compete on girls and women's sports team after stating he found their participation deeply unfair on a recent podcast, and to inquire as to his intention to encourage California public schools to comply with federal law on this issue. The secretary suggests that a great place to start protecting girls in California K through 12 schools is to repeal the state code allowing students to participate in sex-segregated school programs and activities and use facilities consistent with his or her gender identity by calling on your legislature to pass AB 844. The letter also calls on him to reverse California AB 1955, signed into law last year, allowing schools to withhold information from parents about changes to their child's perceived gender identity. Ed asserts AB 1955 violates the Federal Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA, which gives parents the right to access their children's educational data. On the same day, the Department of Education's Student Privacy Policy Office announced an investigation into the California Department of Education for alleged violations of FERPA. The press release announcing the investigation includes an assertion by the California Justice Center that as a result of Governor Newsom signing AB 1955 into law, every public school in California has a policy of denying or effectively preventing the parents of students the right to inspect and review the educational records of their children. On the 28th, Secretary McMahon circulated a Dear Colleague letter directing schools to comply with federal parental rights laws. The letter was sent to chief state school officers and superintendents at educational institutions receiving federal funding, notifying them of their compliance obligations under FERPA and the Protection of Pupils' Rights Amendment, PPRA. Compliance with these laws means that schools must allow parents to review all educational records of their student, including any document related to a student's gender identity. Going forward, the Department of Education will insist that schools apply FERPA correctly to uphold, not thwart, parents' rights. Also on the 28th, the U.S. Department of Education Student Privacy Policy Office SPPO, announced the launch of an investigation into the Maine Department of Education for alleged FERPA violations. The investigation comes amid reports that dozens of Maine school districts are violating or misusing FERPA by maintaining policies that infringe on parents' rights, and reminds the Maine DOE that state laws do not override federal laws, and educational entities receiving federal funding are subject to FERPA and its implementing regulations. Of note, Maine's DOE has not yet formally responded to the OCR's finding that it is in violation of Title IX by allowing males to compete in sports reserved for girls. On March 17th, the state entity, the Maine Principals Association, and Greeley High School were given 10 days to comply via a signed agreement or risk referral to the U.S. Department of Justice for appropriate action. The Principals Association, which oversees high school sports in the state, and School Administrative District 51, which includes Greeley High School, have both said they will not comply with the agreement, citing state law and the Maine Human Rights Act. And finally, in yet another reminder that courage calls to courage, XXXY Athletics recently tweeted, apparently our Real Girls Rock t-shirt, worn by Brave School Board member Nancy Rumfeld, sparked a 4-hour school board meeting that needed 2 overflow rooms to accommodate all the people that wanted to speak out about it. In an opinion piece published in Loveland, Colorado's Reporter Herald, local resident John Mark Patterson states that he is saddened by the campaign of abuse organized against Nancy Rumfeld, a director on the Thompson School District School Board, who is often in the minority when the board votes, but she speaks for many in our community and puts children first. He advocates that instead of pearl clutching and charging Nancy with thought crime, we should instead look closely into actual policies adopted by the TSD board that might truly put children in physical and emotional danger. And that's all I have today. Thank you.